Hello and welcome to this YouTube episode. This episode I think is quite an important one. It is a question that comes up so much as part of our aftercare, and I'm keen just to kind of support accordingly and really just sort of change the direction of diet a little bit, because I think the question itself is how many calories should I be on? And this could be the question that comes up 3 days post-op, 3 months post-op, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 24 months post-op. How many calories should I be having? And I think the question comes from the link of method-based dieting, okay? This idea that this is the right one for me. Now, I'm just going to start the podcast as I did the other day, because I don't want to go into too much detail on YouTube and then not do the podcast. I don't want to repeat myself too much. But that's going to be the talk of this episode, and why we need to think of it slightly differently. And I will, by the end, sort of give the formulas and the numbers that may be relevant to you, but again, making sure we bear in mind the different sort of variables that can occur. Okay, so we'll go in 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome to the Tonic Weight Loss Podcast. My name is Harry Hedges and I am coming at you today with regards to talking about calories. Now, this is a question that comes up quite a lot. I'm actually recording myself on YouTube again at the same time, and I just mentioned briefly on the YouTube video about how a question that comes up quite a lot is how many calories should I be eating at a certain time post-op, okay? Now, I'm going to be concentrating more on the 6, 9, 12, 24 month post-op. It's slightly different in the early stages. The early stages, really, we're looking to fuel ourselves more over time, okay? But the truth be told is it depends, and I don't want to be that guy. I will give you a bit of a formula by the end to kind of work out what may be suitable for you, but it's mightily important I go through some of the variables with you as to why it's going to differ from person to person. It differs from person to person for 2 reasons. Number one, how your weight and how active you are, that's going to differ from person to person, because people are different shapes and sizes, and they're going to move different amounts based on capability, based on their job, based on their preference to exercise, etc. But also, the reason why it differs from person to person is their goals, time constraints. You know, some people have very strict time constraints around maybe getting married or, I don't know, going on holiday or whatever. And that's fine. I suppose you can kind of go slightly more aggressive, but we need to really understand that after that time constraint, we need to know how to balance the books, because a sustainable calorie deficit, or indeed a sustainable maintenance amount, is the goal over time. We want to be energized, the most underrated metric of them all. Something people don't talk about. It's just, you know, people tend to be quite method-based with their diet, so they like the idea that there's this kind of quite aggressive number that they stick to. They find it difficult to stick to, tend to overindulge, because remember, the point of a BMR, basal metabolic rate, how many calories you burn at rest, is we need that amount of calories, right? Our body functions through things that are involuntary, so our heartbeat, our digestive system, our neuromuscular system, our cardiovascular system, you know, menstrual cycle for ladies, and these sort of things don't work as efficiently if we go too low calorie, which naturally is not the goal. So the goal is not to go super low. Of course, it's not to go super high. That's where weight gain occurs. There is a threshold, there is a balancing act here, and that's what I'm going to go through today. On a different video, because this isn't going to work very well on the podcast, I will do a whiteboard YouTube workout and go through the real mathematics of the macros and calories. That'll be a good video to do. But on today, this is more about why it differs from person to person, okay? So first and foremost, whether you're 6, 12, 18 months, 24 months post-op, the first thing to work out is my goal still weight loss, okay? Because it comes with a territory that it's not. Sometimes people are so used to dieting, they always feel like they're dieting, okay? When actually, you know, we need to ask ourselves, what is the goal here of our weight loss? You know, how do I feel? Is it still desirable to lose a bit more body fat? Do we understand that it is going to slow down over time? Let me explain that. So, as we are heavier, our BMR, our basal metabolic rate, is higher. Our resting heart rate tends to be higher. It is basically harder for our body to be alive. That's not a good thing, but we tend to burn more calories because of it. You think that your heart rate's up, you're going to be burning more calories. To walk across the room, that's not at rest, but to walk across the room, you're burning more calories because you're heavier, right? If you imagine you ran to the wall and back, and then you picked up 2 10-kilogram plates and ran to the wall and back, it's harder because you're heavier, okay? So the point being is moving day to day, and how many calories we burn at rest is going to be higher. So that's why heavier people tend to lose weight quicker than lighter people. Now, of course, as we lose weight, there's 2 things happening. One, our basal metabolic rate's going down. That's part of the science. But the other thing is, in the early stages post-op, we are in a very aggressive diet, and we have to eat more. We have to get nutrient-dense food in. We have to fuel ourselves to live an active lifestyle, getting our protein, vitamins, and minerals in accordingly, okay? So we're eating more food. So the calorie deficit is getting smaller. Hence, fat loss will slow down. It's crucial we get part behind that, okay? It's part of the process. It's not going to be the 5, 6s and 7s, maybe it is in the early stages. Remember, there's 3,500 calories in 1 pound of fat. So yes, if your BMR, so Harrison-Benedict formula, it's a mighty complicated formula, but you can work out your BMR from that. But let's just say somebody's BMR is 2,200 calories, and they do, they burn 200 calories a day walking and a bit of movement. So they're burning 2,400 calories and they eat 1,400 calories. They're in a 1,000 calorie deficit, okay? And that means that they would lose around 2 pounds of fat per week. Now, that doesn't mean the scales are going to be 2 pounds down every week, because our body's not just body fat, but if you go by the averages, I always say it tends to work out that way, roughly, okay? However, some people might listen to that and think, well, then I'll have 1,400 calories. I'll take 2 pounds a week. It depends on your BMI, depends how heavy you are, depends how active you are. But also, it also depends on just you as a person, okay? What do I mean by that? Well, you might have a time constraint. You might have something on this week that, this week's a bad example, but you might have a wedding, you might have a holiday or something where you go, I might push it a little bit, okay? And I would say being in a 1,000 calorie deficit is pushing it. Remember, early stages, post-op, you are pushing it, hence the aggressive losses, but there needs to be a balancing act somewhere over time, okay? So the point being is you might decide to do that. Now, a lot of people, when they go on this holiday, when they have the wedding, whatever, experience weight gain afterwards because they go too aggressive. It's not very desirable to stick to. It's not very sustainable to stick to. They go to restaurants, they go to enjoy themselves, and so they should, and the weight gain will occur. But when they get back from the holiday, it's not very desirable because they've lost that motivational factor, okay? So, ergo, we need to find what the sustainable amount is. Now, again, through the operation, through a sleeve, band, balloon, or bypass, we tend to advise, if we are process driven, the restrictive tool will aid you in allowing fat loss to occur. So progressive targets, a calorie deficit can come across as a restrictive target. And I really firmly believe that it's far easier to build progressive habits rather than restrictive habits. So can we move more? Can we eat more protein? Can we look at our sleep quality? Can we get more fluids in? Can we do these sort of things, prioritizing meals over snacks? Okay, so this prioritization of eating more fiber, colorful plates, with protein. If you do that consistently, you'll just find through the restriction that fat loss is most likely occurring. If it's not for a period of time, say a month or so, then we might ask people to track calories. That tends to be the journey, okay? However, if you want to track calories because you feel like it's offering accountability, then maybe there's an educational side, the portion control around it, that's fine. But please understand that it's not a case of eat little as possible. In my opinion, tracking calories has been taught extremely badly over the course of the years in the diet industry. It is not eat as little as possible, get quick weight loss and job done, because invariably there tends to be a fallback, okay? So where I'm going with this is that it depends what the calorie amount is. It's not for me to sort of say, oh, here's Caroline, 1,500 calories. Oh, there's Sharon, 1,200 calories. Like, it does depend a little bit based on your motivation, based on what you've got coming up, based on what energizes you, based on how active you are, based on your weight, based on your time constraints, all these sorts of things, okay? And for example, another thing is, if we have social occasions going on, or we're going to restaurants, or we're going to weddings, birthday parties, whatever it may be, it can be hard to stick to it. And that's okay, because sometimes, unfortunately, when people feel like they can't stick to something for whatever reason that's out of their control, they tend to hit the eject button and stop doing it completely. So I'm not saying on here you have to track. I'm not saying on here you even need that awareness of calories. What I'm saying is that if we are process driven daily, with the tool that you've got, you'll probably find that weight loss will be occurring. I use the word probably because there are variables which mean that you can overconsume or move or not move enough, okay? Specifically, things like polycystic ovary syndrome, a metabolic condition that can affect your metabolism, that can affect your BMR. So with that in mind, we need to be very, very, very aware of this. And that's where something like tracking calories could be quite beneficial, an open mind to trial and error, because it's not going to be necessarily the Harrison-Benedict formula that tells you this, okay? If you've got a history of yo-yo dieting, that can affect your metabolism as well. Many patients come into this process have a history of yo-yo dieting. So what I'm saying is that there is always a way. There is always a way to weight loss. There is always a way to fat loss. But usually, the emotional connection to it all overwhelms logic, overwhelms any kind of real plan, and whether we're tracking calories, not tracking calories, know the calories or don't know the calories, weight loss might not occur. okay? So it's imperative that we understand why we're doing it, hence why I talk about this stuff quite a lot, okay? But let's just say, again, as I said earlier on, someone's BMR is 2,200 and they burn 200, they probably should be burning more than 200 calories to be fair, but let's just say that's what I came up with first. 2,400 calories, they're in a 1,000 calorie deficit, there's 3,500 calories in 1 pound of fat, times that by 2, that's 7,000, there's 7 days in a week, you're in a 1,000 calorie deficit every single day, and that is a 2 pound loss. Now, some people will listen to that and go, no, I've done 1,400 calories and I don't lose weight at that. That's because a lot of people give up by the weekend. So if you're in a 1,000 calorie deficit per day for 5 days and you completely disregard the protein, meals, fibers, waters, that kind of stuff, don't exercise over the course of a weekend, have a social occasion. Trust me when I say you can overconsume 1,400 calories quite quickly. And you can do that on the Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You're in a 4,000 calorie deficit, you can offset that quite nicely, boom, you stay the same weight. And I'm not even saying that's wrong, because I think life is life, and you have to have a social life, okay? But what I'm saying is, understand it. It's really annoying, not for me, but for patients when they feel like they're doing everything right and it's not occurring. And truth be told is, 1 week of doing something is not enough. 2 weeks of something is not enough. I tend to ask people to do 4 weeks of data before, and weighing weekly, comparing monthly. And if you compare monthly and not a lot has happened, then we can look into it a little bit. But I will never, ever say to somebody, oh, you didn't stick to it, and that's wrong, because I understand that. I understand that life is going to do these things every now and again. So hopefully what I'm saying, I'm going around the houses a little bit. I always go off piece a little bit, but hopefully from what I'm saying, there's some nuggets of information coming across that there's not the right amount of calories, okay? Yes, you can work it out. Yes, I will do this whiteboard routine on YouTube as promised to kind of show you, because the fact that the macros fit into the calories as well. So let's talk about that a little bit as well. People talk about what's the right amount of protein, carbs and fats. Well, again, it depends. Some people are more, enjoy fat more. Some people enjoy carbs more. Protein's probably the one that we should be a little bit more set on. I think anything around 100 grams of protein, it depends on your body weight. And with weight loss surgery, it is slightly different, because if there is an obese individual, it's 0.8 grams of protein to 1.2 grams of protein versus pound of body weight is what people tend to sort of suggest to aim for. But of course, if you've got somebody who is 250 pounds and they have a tool of restrictions, it's going to be mighty hard to hit that. So we tend to go on the lower end of the side of that and say, like, let's make sure we're getting sort of 100 to 120 grams of protein over the course of time. And some people hear that and they go, I can't do that, Harry. And I think in the early stages, certainly not. But further down the road, it becomes more achievable. And that's a good thing, okay? The goal is to be able to fuel ourselves more over time. And even 125 grams of protein is only 500 calories. So if we're aiming for 12 to 1,400 calories, or even north of that, if we're maintaining, we should be looking at 30% of our diet being protein, give or take, okay? So again, I'm talking about these numbers so you can look at it and kind of go, oh, that makes sense, okay? Because if I just say 125 grams of protein, people sometimes go, whoa, 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 whoa. But 500 calories doesn't sound too bad. And it's very filling. It's very metabolic. It aids us in so many ways when it comes to our health. And the truth be told is I tend to shoot for about 0.8 to 1.2 grams of protein anyway. So, it is achievable, but I understand it can be, it's not a case of just, the reason we sort of go on the lower side is let's get people achieving and seeing the benefits, and then it tends to be desirable to have more after that, okay? So anyway, as I say, I've gone around the houses there a little bit, but just to sort of summarize a bit, 3,500 calories is 1 pound of fat. It's very difficult to achieve more than 2 pounds a week of body fat when you are 6 months post-op, okay? It depends what your start weight was. I don't want to generalize there completely. If someone is a heavier individual, they may be able to sort of still get more than that. But over the course of time, we've got to accept that is great weight loss on average as well. So for example, in a month, if you lose sort of 4 to 8 pounds, that's pretty good going, okay? And ask yourself the question, am I being process driven? Am I doing the right things? Our BMR, if we work out our BMR, how many calories we burn at rest, usually that surprises people. But remember, that's not the amount to eat to lose weight. Depending on how active we are, we want to be in a deficit of that. So BMR plus how active we are, that's what's called our total daily energy expenditure, a deficit of that. If you're in a 500 calorie deficit of that, 500 times 7, 3,500 calories, that's 1 pound of fat. Likewise the same with 2 pound of fat and being 7,000, as I said earlier on. That is fairly achievable weight loss, depending on where you are, because obviously if you're a much lighter individual, that's going to be slightly different. You have to buy into a smaller deficit, because main message here, we need to be energized to live our life, to live an active lifestyle. It is not just to eat as little as possible for as long as possible. That is not the success story here. I hope that really makes sense, okay? And that's why we can't just hit numbers with you, because it's going to change on a day-to-day basis. But you can play around with averages, you can understand what works for you. Sometimes the goal is to eat slightly more, to play the sustainable card. However, if you have got a time constraint, I can understand why it might be desirable to hit the slightly more aggressive option, but only if we are hitting our protein, vitamins and minerals to have a nutrient-dense diet. We should never fall short of those. I hope that all helps. I hope that all makes sense. I have a plan of action and I go off piece because I get excited. But I don't know how long that video's been. I have no idea, but I hope there was some value there. And any questions, of course, I will do the next up, this whiteboard workout where it's a bit more visual around working out the calories and macros. But please don't overthink it. Be process driven. Use the tool to its advantage. Usually we know if we're doing it, if we're not. And usually when we are doing it, we tend to get the results accordingly. But let me know what that looks like to you. All the very best. Have a great day. See you soon.